Hi, Maya. The old nature should no longer rule us. Does it still rule you? I suspect all of us would say yes in at least some areas of our lives. If you are struggling with sin, this is I can't even speak now. Indicative of strongholds in your mind that are not under the lordship of Jesus. And Paul writes this in Romans 6:6. But until we get to 6, I'm just going to read to verse 5. For if we have been united with him in God in a death like his, we shall certainly be united with him in a resurrection like his. For we know that our old self was crucified with him in order that the body of where was I? Oops. So I'm going to just say verse 6 again. We know that our old self was crucified with him in order that the body of sin might be brought to nothing, so that we might no longer be enslaved to sin. We have no excuses. There should be no contest between our old man and the Spirit of Christ that lives in us. Now we have Romans 6:11-14, but I'm just going to read 11 through 14. Forget that, I'm just going to go from 7 to 14. For one who has died has been set free from sin. Now, if we have died with Christ, we believe that we also live with him. We know that Christ, being raised from the dead, will never die again. Death no longer has dominion over him. For the death he died to sin, once for all. But the life he lives to God. So you must consider yourselves dead to sin and alive to God in Jesus Christ. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, to make you obey his passions. Do not present your members to sin as instruments for unrighteousness, but present yourselves to God as those who have been brought from death to life, and your members to God as instruments for righteousness. For sin will have no dominion over you, since you are not under law, but under grace. Grace is not permission to excuse sin, but supernatural provision to have a life free from sin. This is why Paul says, Romans 6:18, and having been set free from sin, have become slaves of righteousness. Think about that for a moment. Have you been set free from sin? Or are you a slave to righteousness? Is this true for you? I will admit it's a process for me. When I realized that God saw me as holy because of Christ, it changed how I viewed myself. I now expect myself not to sin because I know the Spirit of Christ lives in me and has given me the grace to choose holiness in every situation. Do I sin? I do, but it's less than previously, and I am quite grieved when I do so. And this is Julie Winter speaking, but it's also true for me, and it may be true for you too. When I view myself as just a sinner saved by grace, I was not surprised when I messed up. After all, that's what sinners do. I figured that was just my nature, and God would need to forgive me again. Romans 8:9. You, however, are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if in fact the Spirit of God dwells in you. Anyone who does not have the Spirit of Christ does not belong to him. It is interesting to note that when Paul wrote to the Romans, he addressed them as saints. Romans 1:7. To all those in Rome who are led by God and called to be saints, grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ.